chance, really, of keeping that young man out of jail that night is to let the other officers search her stuff. So she allows that. She calls her supervisor. But in the end, that doesn't matter. In the end, what happens is that young man goes to jail that night. In the end, what happens is this juvenile probation officer is stuck up against a car. She doesn't go to jail that night, but the police, in their remarkable power in this particular city, were able to call her employer, the court system, the juvenile court, and lodge a verbal complaint against her. And 2 weeks later, after we brought this to the public's attention via a press conference, after we said that we would be standing side by side with this particular probation officer as she files a complaint against the Seattle Police Department, shortly after that, she got a letter in the mail. It was from the Seattle Municipal Court. She opened this letter and she called me immediately to let me know that she was being charged with assault. She was being charged with assault of a police officer. Now, the only reason that she's being charged is because at a moment in time, she made the right decision to stand up for somebody that was voiceless, to stand up for somebody that nobody else believed in, to stand up and say, this is happening to our children, to stand up and say, I'm going to talk about what you do, even if there's a chance it could cost me my job, even if there is that chance. Now, I will tell you as an attorney that has handled many of these cases, I've never seen one quite like this. And I can say that I've never seen one quite like this because I've never seen an instance in which an officer charges someone with assault where they didn't go to jail that night. This can only be retaliation. This can only be second-class human status. That's all this can be. We need everybody to stand with us on this. We're bringing this to the public's attention. And as I talk about this, I can't help but think about how appropriate it is to discuss issues pertaining to jails. And especially in economic downturns, we can't ignore that it's the commodification of other human beings. We can't ignore that some people, when you can't find work for them, represent more in terms of economic dollars when they are stuck in a cell. When they are stuck in a cell instead of out on the street corner. We can't ignore that many communities of color across the nation have been decimated by incarceration. And incarceration for whatever reason possible. We can't ignore that actually that person has been charged with a crime represents dollars circulated in a particular community, and when they're moved out to generally a rural community in which people of color generally are not found, they represent significantly more dollars circulated for that particular community. We could not ignore these things. We cannot ignore that impacts employment and opportunity. We cannot ignore that in Seattle, and I'm talking locally now, as we talk about closing schools and we claim that they're race neutral, that the programs that are allocated to the north end are significantly different than the programs that are allocated to the west, to the south end, West Seattle, South Park, and otherwise. We cannot ignore that that's a reality, that while we have an apparent equal system, while we have a system that's supposed to be treating all students of color and of the majority the same, there's a systematic process here that ensures that one group and one bracket in terms of income have improved and better opportunities than the rest. We can't ignore that, so I ask you to have a watchful eye as we move forward and look at the upcoming round of school closures and how that's going to impact people. I ask you to look at the commodification of human beings and stand up and say no to a new jail. I ask you to stand up and say, okay, if we're going to close schools based on lack of attendance at a particular school, how come we don't have a policy that makes it so that all schools have an equal number of students? Because the reality is, those schools in impoverished communities, those schools in areas of color are going to be closed disproportionately for the second time in 5 years. And as they're closed, what I want you to contemplate, because we're talking about poverty here in many levels. If you can't afford to give your child something other than a school lunch, and you now are in this place where you're working 40 to 60 hours a week to put food on the table, and now your child has to be bused to the North End school that's not going to be closed, what do you think happens if your child misses the bus? What do you think happens? Where do you think these schools need to be allocated? If we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are to be treated equally, if we truly believe in a system of fairness and equality and equity, and that's a key word too, because we have to work hard to undo some of the past harm that's been done, then we'll stand up against this. We'll actually act, and it won't just be a conversation that's here, it will be a movement. And the NAACP at this stage, at this moment in time, and we're going to have this in a press conference on Tuesday, is announcing that this year we're calling a youth empowerment movement. We're not accepting that people are claiming that our children, whether they're Mexican, Latino, Asian, black, white, poor, are violent. We are not accepting that. We're not accepting what's been projected upon them in terms of calling them gang members. We're acknowledging that at this stage, in this town, in this city, our crime rate is at its 40-year low. But yet and still they want to tell you that kids that have baggy jeans or clothes that don't fit are somehow the rogues of our society, aren't ready and able and willing to go to college. I'll wrap it up very quickly. Fire right now. I'm getting upset. Okay. We can't ignore this is a very basic reality. It's a youth empowerment movement. And we need to do it, and we need to seize the opportunity. We need to turn and say to every kid that we see that we believe in you, your ability to achieve. And I don't care if they're standing on a street corner with 7 other kids and you feel like you might be a little bit afraid of them. Walk up to them and tell them that you believe in their ability to do whatever it is that they choose to do in terms of education, in terms of opportunity, and ask them how you can help them get there. The NAACP this upcoming week in Seattle enters our 95th year. We are the oldest branch west of the Mississippi. And we made the decision, and we spent a lot of money on this, to bring Michael Eric Dyson. And many of you may know Seattle. And Michael Eric Dyson first is going to be speaking at Franklin High School. And at Franklin, and this is unusual, and we're hoping to move it across to other schools very soon. We're holding teach-ins for the high school students only. Sorry, people. For the high school students only. And then Michael Eric Dyson will be speaking. And then after he speaks, we're going out to a prison. And we're doing something similar. And after that, on Saturday, the 15th, and this is the date I want you to remember, at Mount Zion Church, at 5:30, Michael Eric Dyson will be speaking, open to the public, for free.